Right now at 10, Hurricane Debbie makes landfall in Florida today with potential impacts for the Carolinas. We'll tell you how you can start preparing this morning. Plus, a new approach to safety at a Mount Holly Greenway, the technology that city leaders now hope will make people feel safe. And it seems like just about everyone has tried the sport of pickleball. We'll verify how common injuries really are and easy tips to avoid them. Thanks for joining us here at 10. I'm Jane Monreal. We are continuing to follow today's top stories. First, let's check in on the weather, because it's going to be warm and humid today once again, and we are expecting some impacts from Hurricane Debbie later this week. Right now, you are looking live at Uptown from our view cam, and you can see those clouds are pretty dark, almost ominous. Joining us now, meteorologist Chris Mulcahy, looking at a very active radar and all of that action with Hurricane Debbie.
Thanks a lot, Jane. Yeah, this is a serious situation, not necessarily for the Charlotte area, but this storm system we're seeing right here, Hurricane Debbie, soon to be Tropical Storm Debbie, per the most recent update likely. Right now we have sustained winds at 75 miles per hour. That just needs to go down to 73, and it's officially a tropical storm. So likely when the next advisory comes out here in the next hour, it should be dropping down to that strength now that it officially made landfall at 7 a.m. But here's the deal. Look at this system already. The amount of rain that's being dumped as soon is going to really screech on the brakes once it hits the eastern side of Georgia. We're already estimating rainfall upwards to 7 to 10 inches of rain. And I think some areas are going to see over a foot when this is all said and done. Over the next 3 days, Debbie is expected to go offshore and then come back again. That's going to dump from around Savannah up to Charleston anywhere from 10 to 15 plus inches of rain. Think about that. We typically see about 4 to maybe 5 inches of rain per August this time of year. We're going to see that in a day. So that's why you have excessive rainfall amounts that are really going to be dumping right along the Georgia and South Carolina coast. Notice there's only a low risk for the Charlotte area heading into Tuesday and then still low on Wednesday. We're really not going to see the impacts here until a little bit later on. So keep that in mind. The cone of uncertainty is still quite large. So as this is churning its way further off towards the north, this right here, this update on Saturday is 500 miles wide. So there's a lot of things that can still change that's going to affect the forecast right here in Charlotte. The further east that it goes, we're anticipating less rain here. The further west that it goes, more rain here in the Charlotte area. We're going to break down the timing and storms that you can expect for the rest of the week heading into the weekend here shortly.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chris. And like Chris just said, parts of the country bracing themselves after Debbie made landfall in Florida just hours ago. Less than 24 hours ago, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster issuing a state of emergency. The storm is expected to hit the state late tomorrow night, but the concern right now is that it will stall there, dumping torrential rain in the low country and inland. Some forecasts already predicting a month's worth of rain in a single day. Right now, all hands are on deck as millions race to prepare for high winds, heavy rain, and flooding. Crews in Rock Hill started clearing storm drains over the weekend. City officials say trucks are being prepped and they'll have crews on standby. Residents are urged to pack emergency kits and have non-perishable food on hand in case of power outages. Crews in Mecklenburg County are also staying ready for potential flash flooding. Mike Graham with Charlotte Mecklenburg Emergency Management says to keep an eye on any alerts.
If we ask you to stay off the roads, please stay off the roads. And what I mean by that doesn't matter if it's winter weather or flooding or severe weather. We have to have the ability to get our police officers, our firefighters, our paramedics, our nurses, our doctors to places that they have to be because they're considered critical to what we do.
Local officials say they're keeping in contact with different agencies across the Carolinas and keeping an eye on what the storm impacts will be later this week. As preparations get underway for Hurricane Debbie, South Carolina officials say the price gouging law is now in effect. It allows for normal price increases, but bans people from hiking up food, gas, and lodging costs during times of disaster. Violators could face up to a $1,000 fine or 30 days in jail. Anyone who thinks they're a victim of price gouging can contact the Attorney General's office. The storm continuing to impact flights at Charlotte Douglas Airport. Right now, we're seeing nearly 150 cancellations and over 40 delays. This comes after a weekend of hundreds of delays and cancellations, which forced travelers to find different ways to get home. If you are flying out today, check your flight status before getting to the airport. Newly released body camera video giving us a closer look at the moments leading up to a deadly shooting in Pineville. Back in May, an officer shot and killed Dennis Bodden Jr. after an altercation at a food line. The Pineville Police Department releasing this video over the weekend, and it shows everything from the initial encounter with Bodden to the deadly confrontation at his apartment complex. It all started after an officer responded to calls that Bodden was shoplifting. When he got there, the officer told Bodden to get on the ground, but Bodden ignored the command and walked away. Take a listen.
This is the police. You do realize that, right? That's right. Get on the ground. Dude, I really don't want to tase you.
Shortly after, another officer arrived on scene. Then minutes later, the situation escalated. The officers tased Bodden before shooting him 3 times. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney ruled the shooting was justified because footage shows Bodden reaching for the officer's gun. As we speak, a former Ansing County basketball coach is in court. Jamasio Birch is charged with human trafficking and indecent liberties with children in Ansing County and 2 counts of statutory sexual offense in Stanley County. He was originally arrested in Ansing County back in March before Stanley County investigators announced charges there as well. Right now, newly installed surveillance cameras are helping watch over a Mount Holly greenway. The city approving the cameras as a safety precaution. WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre explains how it's giving runners, walkers, and bikers more peace of mind.
Solace in nature.
We use it weekly, if not more often.
The Riverhawk Greenway at Tuckasegee Park welcomes thousands of people every year. Dolly Williams, a frequent visitor, is one of them.
Our children have fished down here in the past. We enjoy walking.
The trails and the park where memories are made. But that solace was disrupted. The city of Mount Holly received several complaints about safety at the Greenway. In response, city leaders approved $20,000 to buy and install surveillance cameras.
I think they're a good addition to add another level of safety.
This is one of 5 cameras installed in the Greenway, and officials say it will have a live feed directly into the Mount Holly 911 center.
It makes me feel much more comfortable bringing my kids here, allowing my wife to bring my children here. So I feel much more at ease having these cameras here with 911 on standby, considering what's happened in the past.
City leaders say the cameras record when motion is detected. The live feed or recorded footage can be accessed at any time. Williams says she has some safety measures of her own.
Well, we always have our phones, and then we always walk in pairs, and then we always keep an awareness of what's going on around us.
Mount Holly police officers will also patrol the Greenway about 4 times a day, giving comfort to those on the grounds.
I actually do see a lot of patrols in the area, so I'm thankful for that. I think the cameras are a good resource. I like to patrol that. As long as that stays present, I'm happy with what we got.
Jesse Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
Today, CATS bus riders can expect some detours in their usual commute. New route changes are beginning today in North Charlotte. It's for Route 18, that's around North Hoskins Road between Chesapeake Drive and Brookshire Boulevard. The detour is to go around a new water main installation. It is expected to be back to normal Friday night. It's not an Olympic sport yet, but pickleball is now one of the fastest growing sports in America. According to the Association of Pickleball Professionals, more than 48 million Americans have played the sport at least once in the past 12 months. But that comes with an increase in pickleball-related injuries. WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg breaks down the numbers in this morning's Verify.
So pickleball is a mix between ping pong and tennis, and because it's so accessible, more people are picking up the sport and injuries. So let's verify why some of these injuries are happening.
Our sources are orthopedic surgeon from Novon Health, Landry Jarvis, general manager of indoor-outdoor pickleball rec, Jocelyn Fire, physical therapist Ginger Morrissey, and the Association of Pickleball Professionals. Fire says with pickleball, there's such a low barrier to entry.
You can easily pick up the game in your public park, or you can come to a great facility and learn how to play.
She says with the growth of the sport, she's actually seeing a rise in younger people picking up a paddle.
Kind of started to take away the fact that, pickleball used to be known as an old people sport, But now it's really become apparent that it's really for all ages.
But you still see older adults out on the courts, and because of that, health professionals like Dr. Jarvis are seeing more pickleball-related injuries.
Yeah, very similar to most racket sports, strains and sprains of joints and muscles. But we're also seeing a lot more fractures than we would a sort of traditional sport like soccer or basketball, but mostly because of the demographic that plays it.
According to data released earlier this year, bone fractures related to pickleball have increased 200% over the last 20 years. Common injuries include rotator cuff injuries, worsening of arthritis, Achilles tendon tears, or strains, and foot fractures. The vast majority of fractures happen during falls. So the best way to prevent these injuries, Morrissey says it simply comes down to stretching.
People are sitting at their desk all day, and then they jump in their car and drive to the pickleball court, and they're already running behind. And so instead of taking the time to do dynamic stretching, they're just jumping on the court and starting to play. And that's a recipe for injuries for sure.
So while pickleball is a fun sport and one that most people can easily pick up, experts warn you need to take precautions just like any other sport to avoid any injuries. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
Now turning to today's forecast as we bring in meteorologist Chris Mulcahy, and I know you're taking a close look now at Hurricane Debbie.
Debbie is going to be a historic storm, Jane, mainly for rainfall alone, because the worst case scenario you can have is when a storm just stalls out. We've seen that in the past. Florence screeched on the brakes once, made landfall around Wilmington. Hurricane Harvey back in 2017 sat in place. I'm not saying that this is going to be like a Florence or like a Harvey, but over a foot of rain over a 3-day span, that's significant. And as for the Charlotte area, we still have a lot of question marks what the system's going to do once it reaches day 3, because when a storm isn't really moving, it kind of has a mind of its own. So we aren't able to follow the jet stream or, hey, a front's going to push it out. It's going to do what Debbie is going to do, which isn't good news, especially for the eastern side of Georgia and around Charleston and the eastern side of South Carolina, eventually working its way into the Outer Banks. So here's a closer look what we can expect. Debbie should be on the eastern side of Georgia, the center circulation there by your late Monday evening. These rain bands are dumping rain at a rate of 1 to 3 inches per hour, so that really shows in this perspective. Jane brought up a stat that there's going to be a 1-day rain total that pretty much amounts to what we usually see on a given month. Now, South Carolina has been plagued by drought. That's going to be cured, but you don't want to do it all at once, where this is the type of rain that highways could be underwater for the amount that's going to come down. The good news is it moves offshore, but it's also bad news because it starts to pick up more moisture and energy. This almost puts a straw here in the Atlantic, and that is just feeding these bands of rain. So wherever you have these bands of rain, that is one heavy thunderstorm after another. That's where we're going to see some significant flooding. This is Thursday at 6 a.m. at the end of this futurecast. At that point, I think we're seeing a lot more impacts Wednesday night heading into Thursday around the Charlotte area. So how much rain could you see leading up to Wednesday evening? As of right now, I think you just have scattered thunderstorms. We already have some popping up across the area, up to about 2 inches by your Tuesday night heading into Wednesday, and this starts to expand a little bit more as we work our way into your overnight on Wednesday. But when this is all said and done over the next 7 days, right now we're aiming about 2 to 4 inches for the Charlotte area. The further west that you go, we're seeing a lot less rain. But right along the shorelines, anywhere from 7 to 15 inches of rain. That is significant, substantial amount of rain, more than we've seen over the last 3 months. Now, our futurecast, digging a little bit deeper, a little bit further into the forecast, what Debbie's going to do after this is the biggest question mark that we have. If it moves a little bit further off towards the west, that's going to create more rain for the Charlotte area. Eventually, it's going to start to move its way further off towards the north. It gets caught up in a stationary front, still kind of lingers. Then it looks like by your Saturday morning and your Saturday afternoon, things are starting to move its way further off towards the east, and by the end of the weekend, it should be clear of the Carolinas. So for today, high temperatures reaching the upper 80s. We already see some of those darker clouds off in the distance. We're going to hit bottom here really on Thursday and Friday because of the cloud cover, and there's a good chance that some of these days might be stuck to the 70s. Our rainfall chances after that, as I mentioned, it's really Thursday and Friday night that I think is going to be our wettest period. Already right now, we're dealing with some isolated scattered showers. We're going to see that really now until the early to mid-afternoon. Heading into the early evening, we're going to start to wind things down. But then we start to see the outer bands of Debbie starting to flirt with our southeastern area. That's going to be Tuesday morning. Could see a stray rain shower right around the Charlotte area. This is something that we have to watch because one change, one shift is going to mean a lot more rain for the Charlotte area. So we'll continue to keep you updated. Back to around 90 degrees, though, once this clears by the end of the weekend.
Thank you so much, Chris. Well, it is another action-packed day in Paris. We have a few Carolina-connected Olympians competing today. Keep an eye out for Evie Liebfarth from Bryson City. As we speak, the 20-year-old is paddling her way towards a spot in the kayak cross semifinals. Last week, Liebfarth won bronze in the women's canoe slalom event. And one of the biggest stars at this year's Olympics isn't an athlete, it's rapper Flavor Flav. He's becoming one of Team USA's biggest supporters as WCNC Charlotte's Ben Thompson connects the dots.
The self-proclaimed greatest hype man in America is taking his expertise to Team USA. Let's connect the dots. This all started when the rapper came across a social media post from the captain of the U.S. women's water polo team asking for folks to support the team this year. Flavor Flav responded, saying as a girl dad and a supporter of women's sports, he wanted to sponsor the whole team. He's now committed to the team for 5 years, giving an undisclosed amount of money and unlimited hype. And Flavor Flav took his support one step further last week after a discus thrower for the U.S. track and field team said she needed help paying rent. Flavor Flav responded, and with the help of the co-founder of Reddit, they covered her rent so she could focus on competing in Paris. And that is connecting the dots.
Love that story, too. Noah Weil is taking the gold in the 100-meter final. And if you were watching the race in real time, like Chris and I, it'd be nearly impossible to tell who won. Of course, you watch.
Oh, my heart's still pounding, I think, from it.
Yeah, that was crazy. Well, Lyle's beating Jamaica's Kishane Thompson by 0.05 of a second. He came down to the placement of his chest because it is based on whose torso crosses the line first. So close that even commentators nearly called the wrong winner before checking the tape. That was smart.
So I was watching the tape and a bunch of reruns. I think his toe finished bronze, but his chest finished gold, and that's what matters.
Crazy.
And I guarantee Google was overwhelmed with, just like I did, 100-meter rules.
How do you, how do you win?
Yeah, that was one of the most incredible races I've ever seen. And if you were watching, you felt all the emotions that I did.
Totally.
But here's the best thing, Jane. We have more events like that. Lyles is going for the 200 coming up. So we have a lot more activity. So the Olympics, yes, we're starting to wind things down, but we're really just heating up.
Did you see his post too? He said, I have ADD and dyslexia and allergies. And you know what? Why not me?
Yeah, and he overcame like a really bad stint of asthma as well. And they call him the showman for a reason. Well done.
Yeah, great stories out of the Olympics. Reminder, while the Olympics will be on WCNC Charlotte today, we still have your news headlines covered. We're going to be streaming live again at 2:30 p.m. You can find that on our website, WCNC.com, or inside our WCNC mobile app. Go Team USA. Woo!
I get to keep the ribbon on it.
Yes!
I'm happy, but at the same time,